Hey everyone, it's Nancy, the NP here from Caregiver Success. I'm here with a wonderful guest today. Her name is Jynx, and I've known Jynx for let's see, since 2010, I guess, when I started my house calls company in New York. Jynx is one of those people as a caregiver that I'll never forget. She took care of her husband Axel for what, 10 years, Jynx, or
Yes,
so?
yes.
And was a full-time caregiver. She did have some help, but she was so incredible. She was like the star caregiver. I went every month or whenever I had to see Axel and Jinx had many networks going on. She actually was involved with the Alzheimer's Association of Rockland County, and there she met many sisters that all had husbands that one by one over the last 12 years has passed away. They've remained friends. Some of the women have died, though, and the men survived. I do remember, like Ginny, for instance.
Right.
So I inherited all these women and their husbands through Jinx, who's this massive networker. And we had actually a wonderful time, didn't we, Jinx?
We had a great time.
We
And
had a great time. It was bittersweet. It was hard.
there were some husbands who were taking care of their wives too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Jinx, I maybe let's start with just maybe introduce yourself a little bit and tell them more about how it was being a caregiver all those years. And you were in your 60s, right? When you took care of him full time for 10 years or
Yes.
70s, 60s, right?
Yes.
A long time ago.
Well, I turned 60 because I remember having a big party and he
Okay.
was not doing that great at that time. And that was in
Hmm.
2010. Yeah. So he was
Okay.
already probably 3 years into it. But when you first of all, my name is Jinx Staley, and I was a caregiver to Axel, who was diagnosed with dementia in the very beginning,
Hmm.
and probably closer to 2007. Because when I started going to the meetings, I really wasn't sure whether I was in the right place at first because I didn't understand that dementia is the umbrella term.
Yeah.
And when I got into the meeting, you can have a whole lot of different things going on with your brain under the dementia umbrella term.
Hmm.
And this was the Alzheimer's support group. And so a lot of our spouses were at different stages of the disease. And I can go on for 10 years. And the stages are very frightening in the beginning. I think most of the caregivers that join, like myself, were in total denial from that first meeting. You go into the group and everything's confidential, but you start hearing the stories of the other members and you think, oh, I'm never going to be in that situation. It's never going to get that bad.
Hmm.
But after a few months of going to those meetings, I was so thankful to hear the other members shared stories because it helped me navigate through the illness and realize that being angry and being in denial about it wasn't going to help me through my situation. I had to find a way to um, find humor, to make
Hmm.
friends, to share stories and support each other. And some of my friends, their husbands and wives were at later stages, but they'd give me tips so I'd know what was coming and how to handle it. And
Hmm.
it was a never ending disease.
Hmm.
But I had people coming to the house to help care with the podiatrist, if you remember our little
Yeah.
podiatrist
Yeah.
friend,
Yeah.
and hairdresser came to the house, and
Right.
you came to the house, and um, uh, because after a while, in the beginning, I could still get him out, and he would walk very slowly,
Hmm.
and we could go to restaurants, we could go to the stores, but they get so confused and they don't know where they are and they get aggressive sometimes. And if I took him into a store, he'd want to buy everything like a little kid.
Hmm.
They have
So I
unfiltered.
want to take them back a minute. Sorry, Jinx, I'm just going to interrupt you for a minute. I have in my book, Caregiver Success, which I think you saw is rebranded. So this is my
Right,
neighbors up the hill.
right.
I have Jinx in the book with her husband, but the reason why I brought Jinx on it is because she's throughout the book with her stories about Oxel. And I remember one of the first stories she said is he was very organized and was in the garage and had everything in place. And then she one day went into the garage and she noticed that it was not the way Oxel used to think. And she started to see changes. And that's something that I want you guys to notice is that there may be changes in behavior, but you might just see changes around you, like things in the wrong places when they were very organized. And it's kind of a scary thing because, you can have like me, I have a husband that's an engineer, but if something were to happen that he starts to not think clearly, and Axel was a brilliant man, you start to kind of get scared
Right,
of what's just happening here.
right.
So that's what I remember you telling me was one of the first signs something was up that was
Right.
happening.
Well, like
Right?
he was an automotive engineer, and as
Yeah.
things progressed, he didn't know his numbers anymore. The telephone, for instance,
Yeah.
he would say, "Oh, I can't see the numbers." He's repairing things, and he did an amazing job. But suddenly, nothing was being repaired. Everything was being taken apart, and everything was just sitting there.
Mhm.
And he didn't know his numbers. He didn't know how to dial the phone, but he would
Mhm.
always say he couldn't see the numbers.
Yeah.
And then if we went out to a restaurant, he always loved to be a big tipper for the bartenders or the waitresses, and all the
Yeah.
restaurants loved him because he was so friendly to everybody.
Yeah.
Um, but then all of a sudden he didn't want to pay the bill anymore.
Uh-huh.
He just couldn't even calculate numbers. And
Yeah.
that just like he just started to disappear. It was
I
just
think
very sad.
so. How many, and we're going to go on to some other very important topics, which is why I picked you out of my group of wonderful patients, which I had many. Um, uh, the other things that I wanted to ask you was, so from the time that he was diagnosed and became full care, how many years were you a caregiver, would you say? Maybe
10.
7 years, 10 full years.
Yeah.
Okay. And you
Because
used,
he had a lot of hospitalizations prior to that, which sometimes they say can also add into Alzheimer's. Like he had the
yeah,
open heart surgery
yeah.
and he had detox from alcoholism. So
Mhm.
um, and all these, and then they say when you're under for a surgery, when you have the anesthesia, sometimes that can affect the brain.
Mhm.
So he had back surgery and he had open heart surgery. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So this went on, and I remember Jinx saying, "My full-time job is over the day that Axel died."
right. I'd been doing it for 10 years and suddenly I woke up and I was unemployed and I was a
I
widow.
liked how you said that. How did you, can you tell everybody how you grieved as the years went on, or was there grieving as the years went on
After he died or before he died?
during the whole
Oh,
process of
during the
watching
whole
him
process,
go away,
if
from,
I hadn't had my support group,
hmm
I think I probably would have closed the door to my house and just never gone out.
right.
But because of the support group, we
Yep.
gave each other strength and we found humor. We would make gatherings. We'd go out for dinner. We socialized a lot. We'd go shopping.
Okay, so that's an idea that you would say to the people that are listening who have people to definitely get a support group. Is it through the Alzheimer's Association is probably
Yeah,
where to start, or
it's
your local aging in place networks, for seniors, like a
yeah.
senior center, and starting connecting everybody and
Even at the
finding this
hospitals,
group
you can check at the hospital. They have,
through case
like,
management and
because
yeah,
what happens is a lot of your friends and even your relatives, they don't understand the illness
yeah,
and they start to alienate you. So you feel almost like you're in a prison because
Yeah.
They get so frightened by the disease. They don't know what to say when they come to visit. But what they're doing is they're alienating you as well, the caregiver, because you need the support. You need people to come and talk to you. You need people to come and say, oh, let me stay with him for an hour so you can go out and do some food shopping, because you can never leave them at home alone. It's like having
Mhm.
a giant toddler.
So you can get out and take care of yourself, which is that whole self-care thing.
Right. Life when he was no longer ambulatory,
Hmm.
I hired a male live-in aide for
Hmm.
$1,000 a week.
Right. And that
And
was back in what year?
and that was back in
Like 2015 or
2015.
yeah. Okay.
Um, and then I got a little ramp to get him out on the deck with the
Right.
wheelchair.
How did you get him down the stairs though? Because you lived in a high
Never. He
rise.
never went out
Never.
of the house again
Okay,
for
that's another
weeks.
thing. Another thing to think about, you guys, is a lot of houses where we lived were high ranches. And once you got up the stairs, you either went up or you went down. And then you had to pretty much stay there unless you had a chairlift to get you down, correct?
And thank God for you, Nancy, because if I didn't have you, that's when my whole world changed, because I had to always drag him out to doctor's offices for all his different appointments. And they're in slow motion and everything is so much energy. Just put them in the car. And then if you have to go around with a giant diaper bag, and it's sad to say, but it's part of the disease. You have to get Depends. You have to know about the pads for the bed, and you
Right.
you have
Well,
to
talk
know.
about the doctor's visits because I did actually see the value for people like Oxel. I mean,
Right,
I was getting doctors calling me saying, this person can't get out of bed anymore and the family can't take her. Would you take care of them? I just want people to know that, Jinx was throughout the book because her journey was like many of yours. You can have a person with a stroke. The only thing is sometimes mentally they're more there.
right.
Maybe not because they can't speak and tell you what they need or whatever.
And who had ALS. She
Or
was still
ALS. We had
there
a
all the
friend with
way up to
that.
the end. Yeah.
I've loved all my patients and I love taking care of Jinx's husband. And we had a really grand time. And we've actually stayed socially connected all these years because as much as Jinx needed me, I needed Jinx.
Right.
You were a part of my purpose and the reason why I started my house calls company way back then. And you and many, many, many others that needed it. I don't know why there's not enough of that. I know it's a hard thing to do. I remember jumping over snow a foot deep to get into someone's house because the plowman didn't come yet and I had to go in to see the wife and I jumped like a bunny with my bag. Like, who would do that? I mean, how do you get so I have a lot of memories as well, but
Yeah.
the real cool thing about Jinx, and this is the other part we need to talk about to give you hope and humor and see that your life is not over. And I love your story. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about Tom and what happened after Oxel died and where all this happened? Can you tell us a little bit? This is
Well,
great, everybody. So,
yeah. So life doesn't end. And I do want to say that when you were talking about grieving, you do grieve the whole time through the
yeah,
disease. And then you think, oh, I have nothing left. When they die, you grieve all over again because now it's final. So,
yeah,
and then,
okay.
you realize you want to get out there again and you want to start living.
How
And
old were you when he passed away?
I was, what was I? I
Well,
was
must have been
60.
late
uh,
60s.
yeah, I was 65,
Okay, so you're
no,
young.
he was 73, so I was 67, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so so tell us what happened. You didn't stay in the high ranch.
no, well, so my
Where
son moved to Texas and was married and had two babies. And my daughter lives in Barcelona. So suddenly I had to
yeah.
uh, figure out how I was going to live. And my son kept saying, move to Texas. And
Hmm.
I said, I want to stay in my house. But all the people, they call for the first 3 months and then everybody disappears. And it isn't that they're being mean.
What do
It's
you
just
mean the people you called?
the people that all my friends with, they said, we're going to come visit, we're going to come, stay with you. And so 1 year passed and nobody came and stayed with me. And after like 3 months, people stopped calling because
Ah,
they're on with their lives. People
yeah.
are busy. So you have to start making your own life. And I remember I joined the senior group, and that's when I met this Helen Hayes that hired me at the Nyack Hospital, which is now Montefiore, to be a volunteer in the infusion room.
Mhm.
Because I told her I wanted to give back to hospice, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to take you over to Nyack, and don't you
Cool.
worry."
I didn't know
So,
about that.
oh yeah, she's wonderful. I'm still friends with her too, and she has since retired.
Hmm.
But I had to have a purpose, and
Hmm.
then so those are the things. And then finally I was taking a stained glass class.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, but I was trying to keep busy, but I missed my kids and nobody was visiting me. And
Hmm.
I thought, why am I in this house all by myself? This is too lonely. So I started looking, when I would go to visit my son in Texas, I started looking at leasing for an apartment because I didn't want to buy. I was afraid if I bought and I hated the place,
Yeah.
how would I get back home? So I sold my house.
Hmm.
I found a realtor and she was wonderful. And I sold my house. I decided in January of 2018 that I was gonna move.
Hmm.
Uh, no, it was actually January 2019. And I ended up packing everything up. And by Good Friday, I put the house up for sale. And by May of 2019, I was down in Texas
Right.
leasing
So at
an
least you were
apartment.
close to family.
Right.
Where did you move? Tell us. Okay, so let's move quick from the
Uh,
apartment and
yeah.
you found a place. Where are you living now?
I live in Sugar Land, Texas.
Okay, but what kind of a place is it?
Oh, it's a 55 plus community.
Okay.
And it's just it's supposed to be an active community, but there are people, we joke, with appliances moving in because we are older. Our oldest resident is 99 years old. And
Do you have your own apartment?
I have my own apartment. I have a beautiful apartment. They're,
Okay.
sort of high end. That I have 2 bedrooms, 2 full baths, great
Okay.
storage space. I've got a garage, washing machine, dryer, kitchen,
Okay.
living room, pool, heated pool.
You take aquatic classes, I heard,
Oh,
remember you
six
telling me you're
days a
listening,
week, 3 days aquatic water aerobics, we call it,
right?
and 3 days we do chair yoga, and we also have a gym. So and they're very social here. They have activities. A lot of the women and senior men don't drive any longer, so they have different card games for them all day long.
So
And
people are pretty connected though. They don't stay in their
oh,
apartments and
we
shut the
and I
door,
think during
do they?
COVID,
Yeah.
people became really more community oriented. We all
Ah,
started socially distancing here and sitting out at the pool with our
yeah.
cocktails of choice. And
Yeah. I remember your pictures back then. They were great. You're
oh,
like,
we still do all that. And we go to
that's so
different
good.
restaurants, and they have a biking club. The people have bought those giant tricycles
Oh, that's so
that
cool.
are
That's so
motorized. They're
fun.
kind of
Well, your
ridiculous.
weather is good most of the time, right? So you can
Well,
stay
it's still
outside
hot
or
during the
it
summer.
gets
Right
too
now, it's
hot. Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But
so
there's a lot of communities like this in North Carolina, they're all over. They're
you
great.
just have to put yourself out there.
Attitude
Yeah.
and have a sense of humor. And so what happened to me was uh, an old sweetheart of mine
Oh,
became
this is the
a
great part, everybody.
yeah, he became a widower in during COVID, sadly. And
Uh,
all four of us, his wife, my husband, we all worked at the same building. I guess
nice.
a few months after she died, I didn't just get a sympathy card. I wrote him a note, and I remember saying, "You've got this. You got to be strong, but take your time. You have to grieve at your own pace. Don't let
Yeah.
anybody rush you through this.
Hmm.
And if you're in the store and you see a box of cereal and you could suddenly be
Right.
crying crocodile tears because it's
Yeah.
a nerve ending and you have a memory. And
So
but
you
just let
reached
it
out
all
to
go.
him, and he was somebody you knew at what age? Because we only have a few
In
minutes
my
left, and this is
20s.
the best part. You
In
were in
my
your
20s.
20s.
One day I got a text, and now, this is cell phone age, and we didn't
Yes.
have all that. And
Yes.
and he just said, I was shouting at the mountain, I love you, I love you. And I'm like looking at my phone. I'm like, who is this? And then I realized that it must be Tom. And he was saying to his wife that he loved her because I said,
Um,
you got to let it all out. You
oh,
got to.
gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he lived across from a mountain and he was shouting out at the mountain. But I texted, I said, is this by any chance Tom? And he goes, oh, sorry, I didn't realize you didn't have my phone number. So he had my phone number because I had written it on the sympathy card,
Hmm.
but I didn't have his number. So when he sent the message, suddenly I was so surprised. So then we started texting and we
Over
started
like a year.
yeah, we texted a lot. And then, well, I kept saying, oh, we shouldn't meet until like at least a year after your wife dies. I don't know why in my mind I always thought that's
No,
the
it gives
proper
people a
thing.
chance to really get to know themselves again. And
I have a big mouth, and I have a whole group of women now that like to tease me because I was the one that said, I'm never getting married again. I'm never taking care of another man.
yeah,
I love my life. I
yeah,
get up when I want and I do
yes.
my exercise, and it's all about me now. And then
So,
I
so
reconnected
what
with
happened?
Tom.
We have like 5 minutes left. So let's,
Yeah, so I reconnected with Tom, and of course they were all laughing. Oh, so much for doing a lot of traveling. And
okay.
he
Can
has,
we meet Tom for a quick second?
oh yeah, Tom, come here. Mr. Chef, he's cooking right now. He came to visit me in New York. In Texas.
Texas,
I
yeah.
was up in New York and he just came back with me. We have birthdays in December, both of us.
Such a beautiful story. And what my point is that people need to keep living
Right.
and you know, finding where they belong and maybe going back to their past and maybe like finding where they were back then. I think that your story is beautiful. I love your story.
Jynx make touch base
Yeah,
with the
she
letter
connected with you.
um and kind of coach me through some of the grieving that I did eventually go through, all of it.
Yes.
It but I think it helped speed up the process a little bit, just knowing what was coming at me.
Yes.
And also having had some past history there, I
Mhm.
knew that I cared very much for her anyway.
Right.
And that really made the relationship special on a faster pace, at a faster pace.
You know
Yes,
what's
you already knew each other
adorable
well.
is he looks at me like
Like you're
sees me
26.
like I'm still 20 in my 20s.
Isn't that
That's what
great?
I love.
Well, you were a model and you're beautiful and you're still beautiful. But you know, it's interesting how that happens. I think that's how people are who are married for 50 years.
Right.
They
But
still see their young bride or that face that they knew, even though they're older now, and you like they
you know,
change so much.
I've had surgeries and I've gone through my cancer and everything. And I remember being very nervous about seeing him again. And I said, I just want you to know I have a lot of perfect imperfections
Yeah,
because
that's a good line.
um,
I mean, you've got a perfect situation, except you're still living far away. I'm just kind of thinking like,
well, here's the thing. He's got two granddaughters in Australia. I've got
all right.
granddaughter in Spain, and I've got three in Texas, and he's got another one up in New York. Between the two of us, we've got seven granddaughters, and we're just starting to. He spent Christmas with me last year, and now I've been out to dinner and over to his son's house a couple times. I haven't been to Australia. He met my daughter when she was here last year from Spain, so we're
Is there
getting.
any takeaway you want to give to everybody? Because we're going to wrap it up in a
Yeah,
minute or
I
so.
think I think the Golden Bachelorette and Bachelor,
Isn't that
that's
great?
really a
Show?
good eye opener that people,
Moving,
she comes
be
to chair yoga
positive.
and bends over and grabs her ankles.
I wouldn't recommend doing it on a network TV show.
That's,
I am so glad we had this. I know we had a little glitch in the beginning, but it was so worth it.
uh,
Hey everyone, just check out our video here up on Caregiver Success. I'm Nancy, the NP, and thank you so much, Tom and Jynx, for doing this with us. It's something people need to know that there's hope, there's a life beyond being a caregiver. You guys have a wonderful holiday. God bless.
You
And
too.
maybe we could do another one someday. You take
happy
care all.
Thanksgiving.
All right.
Same to you. Thank
Or
you.
should